So we appreciate everyone coming out. And personally, guys, the reason why we started the Black Voters Matter initiative, for a long time, I was armed limp from politics, if you will. Personally, just not knowing how it affected my everyday life. I was always that person about personal responsibility, and you go out there and make it happen. And that's been me. And always preaching that myself, and being an entrepreneur, and going out there and just making things happen. And not that issues aren't happening, but the fact that if you give it much attention, it becomes bigger in your life as well. That was just my philosophy. In 2010, I was elected to chair the board for the African American Chamber of Commerce, and I had a chance to really work with some of the city council and work with some of the elected officials around policy issues in the city, and had a chance to really recognize how politics can affect our everyday lives. Had a chance to see, how the mayor is a chief executive officer for the city, and has $1 billion budget to be able to allocate to contracts throughout the city, and making sure there's participation amongst all communities in business contracts. So, and just recently, I've been traveling for years. Some of you have been a part of the professional network for years and had events, and maybe noticed over the last few years the events have slowed down. I've been traveling, doing some business, and doing events occasionally. About 7 months ago, 8 months ago, we re-engaged the network, doing events. And I'll be quite honest, is seeing where the city's going, seeing the city's, there's some great things that are going on in the city, but at the same time, disappointed with some of the diversity in the city, the attention to the black community, if you will. And then also being in front of the television and seeing what happened in Ferguson, to sit in front of the television and see what happened to Trayvon Martin, to watch all the things that are going on throughout the country, and feeling almost powerless in those circumstances. And to see the hashtags kind of proliferate social media, but at the same time I had to think to myself and said, are those kind of hashtag advocacy turning into actual voters mobilizing to the voting polls to make sure they can actually control how those issues are taken care of, making sure that there's accountability in city government. And many times we mobilize for the national elections, however, the local elections are going to have much more impact on your day-to-day life, are so important. So again, we have our candidates that are here, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually have an opportunity to hear from some of them. It won't take long. We actually have a few panels. But first I'm going to ask if we could have our city council at large, any city council at large candidates, as well as, so any city council at large candidates, if we could take the panel here. If you want to give a round of applause as they're coming to the front of the room. You guys will pass the microphone down to the Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown. If you could, Paul, if you could actually pass the mic down to the Councilwoman. What we'll do is we're just going to ask each candidate in 2 minutes or less, if you wouldn't mind just sharing with this group, why is it important? We have an audience that may not be as engaged in the political process. If you could really share maybe in a minute or so, why it's important to vote, how it affects their lives personally, and then why do you believe it's important to vote for you?
Good evening, Philadelphia. Good evening, Philadelphia. Good evening. First, let me say thank you for your leadership and for this important gathering. My full name is Blondell Reynolds Brown. I come to you as one of the 5 Democratic members of the Philadelphia City Council, and I ask you for your support. Why is it important that you vote? I learned 20 years ago that if women are not at the table in particular, and if people of color are not at the table in particular, oh my, okay, let's fix that. Good evening, Philadelphia. My full name is Blondell Reynolds Brown, and I come to you as one of the 5 Democratic members of the Philadelphia City Council. Why is it important that you vote? As a legislative aide in the State House about 20 years ago, there were 50 state senators. 2 of them looked like me, and 2 were women. And what I learned very early on is that if women are not at the table, and if people of color are not at the table, you get what you get, which is typically nothing. And so if you want to be a part of the dialogue and debate that is going to make a difference in people's lives, then you have to get engaged, you have to get involved, and we have to take some level of responsibility for those we want to represent us. So why would you want to consider voting for Blondell Reynolds Brown? Consider the following. On the ballot will be a question, shall the Home Rule Charter be amended to put in place a Women's Commission for Women permanently forever going forward? That's Blondell Reynolds' question. I would ask that you vote yes. There are uniforms in schools now because that was Blondell Reynolds' idea 12 years ago. Sodas are out of schools because kids need to be healthy. That was Blondell Reynolds Brown 10 years ago. Menu labeling is a law in Philadelphia and a national model. That was Blondell Reynolds Brown. I would hope that you remember that. Children are being poisoned by lead every day. We have a lead bill which says now realtors have to do better so that our children are not being poisoned by lead. Tour guides have to take a test. That was Blondell Reynolds' bill because tour guides were not telling the truth about our story. So those are 4 reasons why I would ask that you look at my record, a strong legislative record, and at the end of the day, there are 19 citywide elected offices. 2 are occupied by women. I would ask that you consider supporting Blondell Reynolds Brown. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Working. Okay. Down here. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Helen Gibb. I'm running for City Council at large, and I'm really proud to be here. I've spent 20 years of my life coming out of community struggle. Most of my work has been in marginalized communities where we've had to fight tooth and nail for self-determination, visibility, and voice. For me, a lot of what is the problem with city government has less to do with whether we've got the resources, the programs, or policies that exist on the books. We do. The gap is in having communities be organized strategically and powerfully to gain access to those services so that this is a city that works for everybody. This is not a city that works for everybody. It's not a city that works for people of color. It's not a city that works for immigrant communities. It's not a city that works for young people. It's not a city that works for people who are working class, low income, and trying to make it in this country. My parents taught me that. I grew up the daughter of immigrants. My parents didn't have much. I did not come from a diverse community. And so for me, public spaces were the places where I landed. I learned to read at my public library because my parents would not have books in English at home. I came to my public rec center because I would meet a diverse group of people different from the ones that my parents interacted with. And I went to a great public school. And to me, those public spaces are the most important places where we come together as a society, we invest in our people, and no matter what individual circumstances you may have come from, public spaces and that investment is the place where we can organize, we can come together, and we can fight for what's right. I'm asking for your support. Again, I've spent 20 years thinking through some really serious issues about what's happening within our public schools, who's going to speak up for them. I've organized parents to go after the parking authority to make sure they pay their fair share, $10 to $15 million a year, to go towards our schools. I've made sure that we talk about ending the school to prison pipeline, that we met with the police chief to make sure that there's got to be an answer for why we can have a police officer, surveillance cameras, and metal detectors in every single school, but we can't get a nurse, a counselor, and a librarian. So I want to thank everybody. The difference between why we vote and why we're fighting to gain access is because the conversations that are going to happen in this room are fundamentally different from the conversations that are happening in City Hall, Harrisburg, and Washington, D.C. If you want to change that conversation, we got to put the people who came out of this community into City Hall and make sure that they represent those voices, our issues, and our needs. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Steinke, and I'm running as a Democrat for Philadelphia City Council at large. I guess my biggest claim to fame is that for 13 years, I was the general manager of the Reading Terminal Market. Show of hands if you've been to the Reading Terminal Market. It's a whole bunch of you. To get to Suleiman's question, why is it important to vote I consider myself a real student of history, and here we are in the African American History Museum. I served a stint on the board of the Philadelphia History Museum. Well, we all know that African Americans were denied the right to vote for a very long time in this country and had to fight to get it. We all know that women were denied the right to vote and had to fight for the right to get it. We all know that immigrants, and I'm the grandson of immigrants, had to fight for the right to vote as well. It's up to us, the succeeding generations of the people who fought that fight, to go to the ballot box and vote for the government that we want and we need in this city, in this state, in this country. I'm proud to say that I have voted in every election since I was old enough to vote. The first candidate I voted for was Mayor Wilson Goode, the first African American mayor of this city, and I was proud to do it in 1983. As for my candidacy, as I mentioned, I worked at the Reading Terminal Market as its general manager, and I have 25 years of experience in community and economic development. Prior to that, I was the first director of University City District, which helped to clean up a big part of West Philadelphia, make the sidewalks cleaner, safer, more attractive, helped to rehabilitate Clark Park, and before that, in the 90s, helped to start the Center City District, which today we think of downtown as this gleaming emerald city that everybody wants to spend time in. Back in the 90s, that was not the case, and I was part of the initial team that helped to create that organization and was part of that for 7 years. So to wrap up, what I believe we need to do as a city is to do all the things that we all agree we need to do. Fund the schools, adequate police and fire protection, to have well-maintained parks and recreation centers, libraries, all the things we want our government to do. We need to expand our tax base. This is the professional network. You're all in business. We need to expand our tax base in this city so that we can create jobs, reduce unemployment, drive down our poverty rate, which is the highest of the 10 largest cities, and have more resources to do all the things we want our government to do, including fully fund our schools. And so that's what I seek to do as your new city councilman at large, Paul Steinke. Please remember me, Democrat for City Council on May 19th. And thank you for having us here tonight.
Hello, how's everyone doing tonight? My name is Sherry Cohen, running for City Council at large. I ran 4 years ago in 2011 and was a runner-up citywide. I'm running now, there's a vacant seat, and asking for all of your support. First, let's talk about the importance of voting. If you look at where people vote in the city and where resources get directed to our city, you'll see that where more people come out to vote, city gives more resources too. So unfortunately, that's just a sad fact. So people got to come out to fight for your communities, let people in power know that your communities are coming out to vote and you're not going to take it if services are not being delivered equally and equitably to your neighborhood. Government is where we fight for what we believe in. The importance of voting is putting in people who are going to be fighting for you and with you to fight for a world that we all want. A world of equality, dignity for all, a world where we can enjoy, everyone can have fully funded, excellent schools, great parks, great neighborhoods, great libraries. I call myself a fighter for working families and our communities. And here's an example I give. Do you remember a few years ago, neighborhood libraries, a number of neighborhood libraries were going to be closed by the Nutter administration. How many people remember that a few years ago? 11 neighborhood libraries were going to be closed. One of them was my local branch, and I was active in the Friends group of that branch. Then we heard these libraries were going to be closed, so we organized, formed a citywide coalition to save the libraries. I'm also a lawyer, a public interest lawyer. A few of us got together and we sued the mayor to keep the libraries open. Thank you. Thank you. We won that case, and that deserves an even greater applause. We won the case. It was very exciting. The mayor was going to close 11 neighborhood libraries on December 31st, and on December 30th, the decision of the judge came down. And she told the mayor he could not close those libraries, and those libraries are still open today. After that, we formed a coalition for essential services, fighting to reopen 29 neighborhood pools that had also been closed. We rallied in front of the neighborhood pools all throughout the city, and we fought to reopen those neighborhood pools the following summer. We also fought for more funding for our parks, rec centers, youth jobs programs. So I'm running on a platform of issues that I think will strengthen our city. Number one, we need to increase our minimum wage. $7.25, can we survive on $7.25? You know, people were fighting in the 1960s for a minimum wage of $2 an hour. Right now, in this year, it would be $15 an hour is what the rate of inflation would make the minimum wage today. So we have a long ways to go to be able to have people working full-time, living in dignity, being able to fully support their families. Number two, we need a public education system that works. We need local control. Is it time to end the SRC? It's time to end state control. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. It's time to end state control over our school system and regain local control. I'm for an elected school board. We should be the ones running our schools, not Harrisburg. I think our criminal justice system has gotten totally out of hand over the last 30 years. Our stop and frisk program has got to go. Mayor Nutter ran on the stop and frisk program in his campaign 8 years ago, and we have seen so many more people locked up, often for no reasonable suspicion whatsoever. So I say City Council has got to look at this. We've got to raise our voices and say stop criminalizing communities of young African American and Latino men. Let's stop the criminalizing of our communities through the criminal justice system. Yeah, okay, all right, thank you.
I know some of you guys have to run. I know you have to run. If you have to go, we will, we'll excuse you. We thank you for making it. So if you got to step away from the panel, we thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay. We keep this about 2 to 4 minutes. Okay. 2 to 4 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Y'all can do better than that. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Janae Ayers, and I'm a candidate, Democratic candidate for City Council at large. There's a quote that I love that I think is appropriate that I will share tonight. Former President John F. Kennedy stated, "Change is the law of life. Change is the law of life. Those people who focus on the past and the present will surely miss out on the future." As I look around in this room, this represents a vital portion of the future of Philadelphia. This room is vibrant. This room is diverse. There are men and women, there are young people, there are older people who have amazing careers and who have dedicated their lives to serving Philadelphia. It's what we need. The reason that I decided to run for City Council at large is because our city is at a very important crossroads. The future of our city has not yet been determined. Will we embrace positive change, or will we hold on to old paradigms? How will we be a world-class city when we have the highest deep poverty rate of all of the major cities in America? How will Philadelphia be a world-class city when our schools are chronically under-resourced and chronically underfunded? How will we be a world-class city when our very own city council doesn't reflect the diversity of this city, let alone the diversity of this room? There is no one currently serving on city council under the age of 41. And as mentioned before, women in public office are few and far between in this city. I am running because I am equipped and I am ready to serve this city. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm 26 years old. I'm 26 years old. I'm born and raised in Philadelphia. I had the fortune of being able to have a bird's eye view of public service as I grew up. I watched my dad climb through every single rank of the Philadelphia Fire Department, most recently serving as our fire commissioner. And I'm a product of the Philadelphia public school system. I went on to graduate from Harvard. After I graduated from Harvard, I wanted to learn about solutions. So I worked as a nonprofit consultant. I traveled around the country and advised nonprofits on how to create breakthrough impact on vulnerable communities. And as a person who's always been passionate about social justice, ever since I was young, working at the NAACP as the youth council, President. I'm matriculated at Yale Law School, where I'll graduate in May. I have the skill set. I have the skill set. I have the passion. I have the energy for service. And I promise you, as a city councilwoman, I will use every ounce of my being to fight for the change that we need in our city, to ensure that each one of our young people have a quality and successful education, to ensure that economic growth is not just limited to certain pockets of the city, but that it flourishes across the entire city. In closing, May 19th is so important. We're here because black votes matter, black voices matter, all votes matter, all voices matter. Take that seriously. For city council at large, you have 5 votes, 5. And I'm asking you to make me one of them. Please remember my name, Janae Ayers. I'll be the second person you see on the ballot. And change is the law of life. Change is the law of life. And remember, on May 19th, the future of our city is at stake. Thank you.
I'm a teacher, so I gotta see y'all over there. I can't really. This poll is killing me. First and foremost, we gotta give Suleiman, the UPPA connectors, and everybody who put this event together a round of applause. There's nobody else in the city that can do this. And to be honest with you, if I was running for city council at the age of 26 and Sully put this together 4 years ago, I might be an incumbent right now instead of Roberta Wilson County for the seat. This is an awesome event. It's a great turnout. And it dispels the narrative that black people don't care about the political process, because we do. Now, so the question you asked was, why is the black vote so important? Now, on Wednesdays, it's ironic, I teach an African American experience class at Lincoln University. Some of my students are here right now. LU. And I also teach an institutional racism class on Saturday. And the ideology behind the institutional racism class is that there is a web of institutional racism that exists. And the concepts in this web is education, right? We talked about that before, schools are terrible. The other concept in the web is housing, significant issue, right? When we talk about our ghettos and our project. The other issue in the web is employment, right? Because we talk about raising the minimum wage and the things that we need to do for the opportunity to provide a quality living, right? And then the fourth concept in that institutional racism, when you look at this entire web, ironically enough, is politics. Now, the common thread between all 4 concepts is politics. So the first reason that the black vote matters is because if we're ever going to destroy the web of institutional racism, we have to vote. We have to vote every year, twice a year. And that's imperative if we're going to lift ourselves out of this poverty that's been in existence for years and years at a time. If we're going to change what's going on with our schools, if we're going to do something about this entire concept of institutional racism. Now, the second reason that the black vote matters. Most people don't know that, again, I ran for city council 4 years ago. And to be honest with you, when I first ran for city council, I just wanted to make a difference. A lot of people in the room here are folks who grew up with me. And if you know anything about me, I never aspired to be an elected official. I spent a lot of time in the Freedom Schools program, which is a movement that comes out of the civil rights era. And what we learned in that program is the concept of servant leadership and the concept of doing work because the work needed to be done. So it's honestly against my DNA to really run for city council and put myself at the forefront, but I recognized the problem and I wanted to be a difference. I wanted to try to make a difference. I wanted to try to solve that problem. When I ran for city council the first time, I was able to get about 31,000 votes in a race that you need about 46,000 votes. But unfortunately, because I didn't have that traditional political background, I didn't have the resources that's needed to win. The reason that we need excess resources, the reason that it's costing us $250,000 to run for city council is because we have to trick you into voting for us. That's the truth. It helps that my name is Isaiah Thomas, of course, right? Part of one of my gimmicks. It helps. But the sad thing is, it shouldn't matter where I am on the ballot or what my name is. If we're serious about the black voter, and we really want to do something about this idea and this concept that the black vote matters, we have to get ourselves to the point where it's engraved in our climate and culture, like hip-hop music is, like a lot of other things are, where though we vote every year, twice a year. If we were to the point where we did vote every year, twice a year, it would allow more people who just want to do good stuff to be in office. Everybody doesn't have a Chris Woods, who's their finance chair, that can introduce you to a bunch of people, or some of the other people who helped put me in a position where I could win. Everybody don't have that. So imagine if I don't have those things, if I didn't have those things. I'd be another guy just looking at a problem, trying to make a difference, which would discourage more people to not want to run for office. So we have to change that. We have to vote every year, twice a year. We have to change the climate and the culture in the black community, where as though we vote, we care about politics, we're educated, informed, and we understand what's going on. Thank you.
I don't like these polls either. They're not very good. You can't see through them. That's supposed to have a glass poll. But I really want to thank the UPPN for hosting this. I think it's very important. My name's Al Taubenberger. And if you remember, I'm the guy 8 years ago who ran against Michael Nutter as the Republican nominee. I got my hiney kicked. Looked pretty bad. Didn't win an award in the city. But I'll tell you, one of the things that came out of that campaign, and I can't thank Sherry Cohen for bringing it up again, was a little difference on a number of things that we came in. There's some things we were together. We knew the job and business were important. But I'll tell you right now, stop and frisk, I was opposed to it. I was opposed to it 8 years ago. I'm still opposed to it. I think it's wrong. It is very, very, very wrong. And I'll tell you why it's wrong. Because my parents were immigrants from Germany in the 1930s. They loved this country very, very much. Very much. The fact is you had to vote. And that's why it's so important to participate in the democratic process. But guess what? Between 1941 and 1945, if you had a German accent, well, you were getting pulled in. Police were looking at you. It isn't right. And that's discrimination. Didn't matter anything else about you, but he had that German accent. So any forms of that, I'm opposed. I'm not just opposed a little bit. My background is, I was born in Northeast Philadelphia, went to public school, graduated Northeast High. I have 4 children, 3 of which graduated from public schools. Northeast, 2 from Northeast, Central, and I have a young man who's attending a public school, high school right now. So I know what the importance is of public education and how important it is to the future. The other thing I've been doing for 23 years, I'm the president of the Northeast Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce. I've worked real hard in keeping jobs here and creating jobs. I was helpful with Augusta Aerospace and staying in Philadelphia when they were looking to go to Texas or Alabama or Indiana. They stayed in Northeast Philadelphia, and we have 600 employees there. That is important. That's actually doing some work and viable work. Because when people have jobs, they're entirely different. I serve on the board of OIC. In fact, their chairman, T. Bostic, is right there now. Give him a round of applause for all the volunteer work he does. I am dedicated to getting jobs in this city. Re-looking at the tax code to see and track businesses. The bottom line is we need more businesses in this city so more people have the opportunity to work. We need the proper training through OIC, but also through the public school system. People need jobs, and I'm a guy that's not going to sit on the back bench. I'm running as a Republican candidate for city council. 2 of us will win, but I'm not going to be any wallflower. My parents came from Europe at a time it was difficult. I'll speak out in a loud voice. We need jobs, we need them now, and I'll work real hard to get them. Thank you for the opportunity.
You guys would mind giving one more time for our city council at large candidates. And you won't have time for questions here, but you guys hang around with the people that you get a chance to meet from afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Where's Miss Monica Burks? She's our timekeeper. Keep Shepherd. I learned from my mistakes. So we're gonna do next is actually gonna have do we have any city council for district city council, and I think we have Sorrell Park. Anyone else? This district city council. Okay, we'll have Sorrell Park. You have it to yourself. Give a round of applause for Sorrell Park.
Now, y'all heard from Isaiah earlier, and y'all can look at me and obviously tell I'm black, but I'm Baptist, and I'm a former high school English teacher, and I believe and I need call and response, so we'll do it just one more time. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's indeed an honor and a privilege to be here with you, and I do want to thank UPPN for putting this together. I want to start because, again, I'm a former high school English teacher, so I want to answer your question first. And the question was, why do black votes matter? Why should we be participating in the process? You should, because government and politicians have never gotten anything done or anything right just because it was the right thing to do. Voting rights and or civil rights came because people agitated on the outside to force those who were elected to do right by this constituency and the progressive community nationwide. Why is that so important? I am an incumbent. I think only one of the people who were just on this panel was an incumbent. And when you are an incumbent in office, this is what's so important about that. When you're running, you can say anything to get around the applause, right? You give a good line and, you say, oh, hey, wow, that's good energy. Jenny Newkirk, you're a veteran. You know that, right? However, the issue is that when you run for public office and you've been elected, you have a record. You have a record that people can measure. So let me tell you what I think about my candidacy for the 9th Councilmanic District. I am state representative for the 200 legislative district. That means I represent Mount Airy, Chestnut Hill, and I just lost Andorra and Roxborough. If you believe that politics is a tool that is used to decide how scarce resources are allocated, you should be able to measure whether or not my politics have been effective for my people. Let me give you an example. Why would you consider voting for Sherelle Parker if you traveled through every commercial quarter in my district and it looked the way it did before I took office 10 years ago? In your neighborhood. I love downtown and I love Center City. But let me tell you what I love even more. I love it when people drive down Wadsworth Avenue going across the street to the county and they see trees lit and banners on signs and new signs on businesses. It tells the people that live in their community that your tax dollars matter and you see them invested in your neighborhood. That should be happening across the city of Philadelphia in your respective neighborhoods. Second, as it relates to education, it's easy for people to talk about funding public education. The issue for me is, how do you view it? What is education? Education is a tool that can be used to close the gap between the haves and the have-nots. Sherelle Parker, born to a single teenage mother, raised by my grandparents in West Oak Lane. They were like the Jeffersons, lived in North Philadelphia, hit the lottery, moved uptown to West Oak Lane. And so what they did was they made sure by moving to a community that they considered to be progressive, they were trying to give me access, right? My grandmother was a days worker. Now, y'all might not have ever heard of the term days workers. Today they're fancy. They call them environmental technicians, right? But she did that in order to make sure that I had an opportunity. Why public education? It's the only thing that'll give our children the opportunity to compete in a global economy. I passed legislation in Harrisburg to ensure that delinquent property taxes are collected to send dollars to the school district of Philadelphia to support those children. And not all of our kids are born in a Beaver family. And or they're not like Rudy and or Cleo. Some of them are like living in good times, right? They're more like Thelma and JJ, right? They just live in row houses on tree-lined blocks, but they need access to opportunity, neighborhood stabilization, and job creation. Sherelle Parker, candidate for the 9th Councilmanic District. I am the right voice, and I am the right choice. I ask for your vote and support on Election Day. Thank you.
All right. You guys all the judicial and city commissioner candidates. We're going to have them introduce themselves. So let's come to the front of the room. All the judicial and city commissioner candidates come to the front of the room. Give a round of applause. All right. Okay. And okay, good. So we have Why, you know, in the race that you're running, why is it important for people to understand and vote for your position, not necessarily your platform, but your name, and why is it important for them to vote, and how does it impact the community as a whole? Okay.
Thank you. I'm Betsy Wall. Good morning, good evening. I'm running for Court of Common Pleas. I'm a master in juvenile delinquency courts. I've been there for 12 years. I'm running because of all the times I get stopped on the street by a young person who says, "Aren't you Master Wall? I remember you from 2008. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have graduated." I'm running because I was speaking at one of our placements at graduation where I had about 40 of my kids graduating who never were going to school or were hanging on the corner. I'm writing because of all the kids that wrote to me on my Betsy Wall for Judge Facebook page to say thank you for what you did for me when I was in the juvenile system. Their parents are writing to me, and I have kids working on my campaign from my courtroom back when they were juveniles. So I'd appreciate your support. I want to keep doing the work I'm doing in juvenile court. All kids matter, every color. We have a disproportionate number of minority kids or kids of color in our placements. That needs to stop. It needs to stop now. And I'm working on it from the beginning of the process at the time of arrest on the Disproportionate Minority Impact Committee. We're trying to aim at that issue for every part of the system, including in placement. So I'd love your support. Thank you very much.
My name is Sherman Tompkins. I'm running for Common Pleas Court Judge. I am running because I can see what is happening to justice in our country. I can see what is happening to justice in our state and in our city. People are again beginning to distrust the legal system because of the decisions that are coming from our courts. It doesn't matter if it's Trayvon Martin case, or the Michael Brown case, or the Eric Garner case, the Martise Johnson case. Black people are still fighting for justice coming out of courtrooms. All of these decisions that we look at and we say is unjust. There was a judge in the room. There was a judge in the room. I want to be that judge in the room. I want to make sure that there is justice and equality for all people and all Philadelphians. We have not seen these types of cases in Philadelphia, and we should not see them. In Philadelphia, we need justice. We need judges who are fair, who are honest, who are trustworthy, who are experienced. I've been practicing over 17 years. I'm one of the few lawyers that can say I practice in family court, criminal court, I can do the civil cases in orphans court. But most importantly, I am here in this community. I represent this community, and I believe that we need judges that represent you and I, this community in Philadelphia, and I want to be that judge. I look for your support. I thank you for your support in advance. My name is Sherman Tompkins.
Hi, good evening. Fran Fatah, I'm running for Common Pleas Judge. Thank you, Suleiman, for getting everybody together, because this is so important. Your vote matters because, I mean, we need your support and our, you know, our legacy, right? And it's so important. Gosh, goodness. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. But yeah, I mean, I am running for judge. I am excited for your support. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Sawyer. I'm actually a judge, and I'm going to tell you I'm uniquely qualified for 3 reasons, and I'm going to answer the question real quickly. The reason why how about that? The reason I'm uniquely qualified is I'm already doing the job. Okay, I'm in 703 all week. You don't have to guess how I'm going to rule. You can come find out. Everybody that walks in my courtroom is a fair shot at the nerve, and that's the main reason why I'm uniquely qualified. On top of that, it's 23 years of experience doing nothing but litigation. So if somebody's been practicing law for a while, make sure they've been inside of a courtroom first, okay? The next thing reason why I'm uniquely qualified is I'm a single parent raised by a single parent. I've worked 2 and 3 jobs to get 2 and 3 law school. I started college at 14. I started college at 16. I started working at 14. So I'm uniquely qualified because those 3 areas, there are very few people you're going to hear to be able to say that. Now, the reason why it's important to vote is exactly what Cheryl Parker said. Politics is about the allocation of limited resources, and those limited resources are going to be allocated whether you get involved or not. So if you decide not to get involved, you're going to sit around and wonder what happened to your shot of the pie when your voice was never heard. Right. Judges for the Court of Common Pleas, before I stop, 10 years, guys. Now, as important as the city council races are, which they are, and the mayoral race, which they are, very, very important, if you make a mistake, you can change your mind in 4 years. Court of Common Pleas judges sit for 10 years. And in the history of the Court of Common Pleas, only one judge lost the retention election. So on May 20th, and you wake up and there are 15 new judges, 3 municipal court and 12 Court of Common Pleas, if there's anybody you don't like and you didn't vote, I don't want to hear about it.
I'm running for city commissioner. I'm the only African American woman that's on the ballot. And by the way, I'm voting for Sherelle, and I live in Southwest Philly. I'm a chief. I'm gonna go write her name in the phone. But I'm just saying that I love to speak. Here's what I want to say about the right to vote. I believe that you all have the right to have access to information and the right to run for office. We all know it's important to vote, but it's equally important for you all to have the right to run for office. I ran for city committee, and I was unseated, even though I was duly elected by my community. I took them to Superior Court and won, and they seated me. And as a result, it was called the Tracy Gordon Rule. So now, whenever you run for city committee, they have to seat you if you win. I served as a deputy commissioner and city commissioner for close to 3 years. You would not believe how much people don't know about the process. You all don't believe that how much you don't know about how to fill out a petition, what a petition is, what do a city council do, what are their duties, what a state representative does. It is very important to have access to information, because if you don't have access to information, you are only going to have a limited choice to vote for. I want to be your city commissioner because I want to continue. During my tenure, there was a record number of committee people that ran for office in the history of Philadelphia. And it wasn't about running to get ward leaders out. It was just about getting people involved in their community. Whether you're a block captain, that takes an election. Whether you run for committee person, that's an election. But the thing that I'm seeing is most people don't understand how to. And the way the system is structured, they don't want you to know how to. Another thing I did as a city commissioner is I went in every high school in the city of Philadelphia and made sure that your seniors was registered to vote. Why isn't that already implemented? That's one thing I want to do. I have enough time, but just remember, you have a right to vote, but you also have a right to run for office.
Time, so actually 30 seconds to 1 minute. Apologize, but we just need 30 seconds to 1 minute.
My time is taken there, huh? Thank you, Tracy Gordon. We appreciate it. In 30 seconds, folks, let me say this. Great leaders don't set out to be leaders. They set out to make a difference. It's not about the role, it's about the goal. And the leaders that came before us put themselves in a position to give us the right to make a difference and to make a choice. And our choice will take place on May 19th. And in my last 10 seconds, I want to say I sat as a committee person, I was election judge, and I'm ward counsel for 40 bids. So I understand what you're about to go through. My name is Lynn M. Summers. I am not running for anything because I'm very slow. I'm seeking to be seated for the Court of Common Pleas, as I've said previously as a Vera Master. Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful evening.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. You've heard from the teachers, but now you're going to hear from the dean of students. I'm a dean of students. And if you act up, I'm suspending you tonight. All right? My name is Will Megg. I'm running for city commissioner. So I'm telling you who I am, why I'm running, and what I intend to do. Again, we said my name is Will Megg. We're going to start with May 19th. What's May 19th? But it's also Malcolm X's birthday, and he gave us the speech, the ballot or the bullet. Let me hear you say the ballot, or the bullet. We're being killed by our own with the bullet. And unless we engage through the ballot, we cannot expect any of these things that people have promised you up here. The sad thing about it is, as educated as you are, as we are, less than 30% of us who are registered to vote are going out to do so. So we can't blame the man. We can't blame our next door neighbor. Every morning when we get up, 70% of us have to blame ourselves. So what I intend to do, I intend to take the skills that I've learned as a graduate student at Lincoln University, the leadership that I've learned as a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and the experience that I've developed as an activist. See, folks talk about what they would do, but I've shut down police stations, 19 police district, asked Curtis Jones, who came up with legislation as a result of police brutality on Alcea Sapor, who later sued the city $4 million and won. I'm not talking about getting people registered to vote, but in one day I got 10,000 people registered to vote through my entertainment relationship with P. Diddy when we went to Temple University. Hold on one second, Sue, right? There's might be some 1911 love right here, right? You know what I'm talking about. But I use those skills to say, listen, I know how young people get engaged, right? And this is how we will get them engaged, by using our network through social media and entertainment. And finally, one of the most important things I intend to do, there's a large segment of African American men who are the least likely to vote, who are in prison. And the only group of them who cannot vote are those who are in prison with felonies. Everyone else can vote, but they have to fill out these long absentee ballots. And the number one thing people in prison have in common is they don't have a high school diploma, so they don't intend to do all that right. But if we can take voting machines to schools and churches and everywhere else, we're going to take these voting machines to the prisons for the people who are most impacted by the system to vote the folks who don't care about them out. I'm Will Mega. You're going to vote for Will Mega on May 19th, or it's going to be a ballot or... Thank you very much.
All right, guys, let's go to the judicial and city commissioner candidates. One more round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. And next, guys, we're going to bring up our mayoral candidates. And we actually have one that's actually walking in as we speak. And I know we have one of the candidates here, Mr. Jim Kennedy. And let's give a round of applause for Mr. Jim Kennedy.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I can't follow Will Mega. There's no way I can make that pace. I've been in a lot of rooms in this election. This might be the most important room that I'm in an effort to get to where I want to be, and that's the mayor of the city. And the reason I say that is because I have to prove myself to the folks in this room, because maybe you've seen me on television and commercials, maybe you've been serviced by my office, but you really don't really know me or my heart or what drives me. What drives me is fairness and equity for people. And I come out of South Philadelphia, come out of the neighborhood that wasn't very enlightened then in the 1960s. And the N-word was not an uncommon word. But it was not permitted in my home. My parents shielded me from that racism and shielded me from that anger and that hate. And then I went to St. Joseph's Prep and up on 17th and Girard, and the Jesuits there molded me into a person that's concerned for others. Their whole mantra, their whole credo is be a person for others. In 1991, I was thinking about running for council, and I was asked to run at large. And I said, you know, the first council district is not going to accept my progressive nature and my liberal ways. In 1991. Now that this has changed a bit, and maybe I get over it a little better with what some of the things I stand for. But I've always taken up the issues that are difficult to take up for someone in my profile. And I have to begin to help people change their attitudes about folks. And when you represent the entire city as I have, and when you've come through council and you've served with people who have schooled you, Marion Tasco, Gussie Clark, Aldo Ortiz, people who have schooled me in the things that I was thinking that were wrong. And there's been a huge evolution in my career and in my life. Not that I was a bad person, but now I'm a more enlightened person. I understand that policing in cities and municipalities are different in every neighborhood. When I was 15 years old, my father and mother said, if you're in Center City, or you're in another neighborhood, you don't know what you're doing or where you're going, and you feel threatened, get a cop, find a police officer, he'll take care of you. That narrative is not common in every neighborhood and in every family in our city. And part of my goal as mayor is to change that narrative, to have every parent in our city feel comfortable enough that the police are here to protect and serve their children too. One of the issues that I got involved in, and it was a real difficult issue because people said, well, why are you doing this? We moved to decriminalize marijuana, the possession of marijuana. And it has absolutely nothing to do with marijuana. It had to do with a criminal record. Because if a young person gets a criminal record, their life has changed forever for worse. They can't get a job, they can't keep a job. I know people involved in that issue who lost their job as a result of getting arrested for $5 worth of marijuana in their purse. You can't get to school and get aid for education. You can't get into the military. It is ridiculous what we do to people when we put them on that road from poverty. So number one, I got 2 minutes, I wish I had more time, so I'd like to come back. I have to prove myself to you. Now I'm gonna stand here and there'll be some skepticism in the room. There's people that I've worked with and people that know me and know my heart and will understand what I'm saying and that I mean what I say. But there's also skepticism in this room. So if you have some faith that I hope you can develop in me, then I will be able to show you what it is I can do in relation to education, pre-K for every 3 and 4-year-old in the city. We can do it. We want to wait for Harrisburg to do it. I want a vibrant reentry program. Not a reentry program that sends a man to the Lincoln Financial Field to clean up after an Eagles game. I'm talking about a vibrant reentry program with an expungement part of that program that really, truly matters. It costs us $40,000 a year to keep a man or woman up on State Road. When they get out, I want to know a year in advance when they're coming out. I want to know what their profile is. I want to know what their skills are, what their problems are, and I'm going to be prepared for them. Because I don't want them to go back because it's stupid for us to let them go back. It's too expensive. And they're not paying taxes. They're taking money you could be using for a college education and spending it on a prison. It's insane. We have to have a robust reentry program, and I will tell you now, I will promise you, you will not be disappointed in your decision if you decide to vote for me on May 19th of this year. I really do appreciate you being here. Again, this is one of the most important rooms I am in this election because you are the folks that I have to convince about my heart and about my actions. And I thank you for allowing me to speak.
Mr. Anthony Hardy Williams.
So, I want you to be clear, all of us have to be firm in your hearts why you support any of us. I'm not here simply tonight to assume because I'm a black guy that you're going to vote for another black guy. I want you to be clear, when Barack Obama was elected President of the United States, he was elected because he was the best man running. And despite what anybody says today, he's the best president that this country could have for all people. He protected an economy when it crashed. He delivered an economy faster than any president of the United States would out of a recession, and he gave us health care. Those 2 things alone make most presidents. He's done 2 of them. I want you to be clear tonight. I am running for mayor of the city of Philadelphia because 3 areas: schools, an economy, and public safety. Schools. My mom is a retired public school teacher, and I read the newspaper every day. Every day. I am the charter school guy, even though there's 6 people running and 5 of them support charter schools. But guess what? I'll take it on. I'll be happy to take it on. A third of the public school district in Philadelphia is charter. Guess who uses that? 98% of them are people of color, and 98% of them are poor people of color. And another 30,000 want to get into a charter school. It's not because we don't believe in public schools and public schools should be restored. Since 2010, I am the horse. I'm the horse. $250 million, $250 million delivered to public education across this town, across Philadelphia County. No, they don't write about it, which is okay. But the truth is that a Republican-controlled legislature, that means in the House, the Senate, and the governor, who didn't give 2 hoots about these kids, had a guy like me walk up to Republicans and get $45 million one-time grant, 1% sales tax and cigarette tax delivered so that we could generate the millions of dollars for public schools in Philadelphia. And I'm not the only one who sat on a charter school board. There's some others. I'm not the only one other who talks about charters. But what I will tell you is, I am the one who not only supports charters, but Lee School, Penn Alexander, Central, Mastery, all those schools have had my imprimatur attached to them because ever since I've been in the legislature, I've supported public schools in the process of them because my mom, my auntie, my uncles, all of them are educators in my family. An economy, when people talk about programs of empowerment and progressive politics, then it should be about allowing us to work. I don't need a program simply to allow me to work. When people talk about reentry, it's not something that I talk about. I have 14 people on my staff. A third of them are people who you would describe as reentry. I don't brag about it. I just hire them. I didn't know they had a record. The bottom line is we were smart, talented people. Some got caught up in the process, made some poor decisions early in life, and they were eligible to be hired, and they deserved to be hired, so I hired them. The bottom line is that we need programs that allow small businesses to survive because most of them coming back are not going to be hired. We need to take that abatement process, which is revolutionized Center City. 40% of your economy is in Center City. Why are we not taking law firms and other firms, put them in neighborhoods across Philadelphia, like 60th Street, 52nd Street, North Philadelphia, allowing them to have secondary companies where you cut hair with a guy who can really tip you? How about that as another concept? And lastly, public safety. People are talking about, they talk about this conversation. There's no division. Let me tell you something. I don't know about you, but I want a cop when somebody breaks in my house. I just want to make sure they don't arrest me. So we're going to use certainly all these things people talk about. We're going to use technology on police officers. We're going to use technology so we can police the communities. But let me tell you what will work the best. How about Barack Obama, again, our president, introduced the concept of policing. Covers all these points and more. And we should sign on to that. And by the way, I've challenged everybody who's running, every candidate to run, to sign on to that. Now, some are not, because the FOP is against it. Be clear. There's no tension in my hood because Robert Wilson III grew up 3 blocks from my house. His grandparents I had to talk to when they buried him. This is not about simply our community. It's about America and having the right to walk down the street, not be thrown up against a wall, stop and frisk today because it doesn't work. I want you to understand that the passion you feel for me is driven because this drives me every day. I have an 18-month-old grandson. He lives with me right now. I wake up every day thinking about the Philadelphia he's going to experience, the school he's going to go to, the economy he's going to inherit, and most importantly, his experience with public safety. I want him to want to live in Philadelphia. I want him to be able to party where you, I don't know where y'all party anymore, I'm too old for that, but wherever y'all hang out, I'm asleep. Wherever y'all hang out, I want him to hang out there. I want this gorgeous crowd of you all who are dressed up, look good, smell good. I want that excitement to be a part of what his experience is going to be. I'm proud of you all to be here tonight. It's extraordinary. Channel 6 should show that, first of all, not only do Black Lives Matter, but Black people vote.
I have a quick question for Jim, and one of the voices that I tried to project in some of the meetings is the fact, around the political agenda, is the fact that we have people in the room here that in essence did everything right. They went to school, they got the grades, went to college, they got the degree, they got the debt. And there's this disparity, did everything right. Amen. Did everything right, but you're still underemployed. You're still unemployed at a disparity. And talking about economic opportunities, OEO, looking at the numbers, 29, so they hit 29% of the $1 billion that the city controls. So from business owners, 29%, out of the 29%, it was 38% African Americans, 39% white women. So we break it down, in essence, about 82% of the budget went to white households. Less than 20%, all other communities. How do you, and this is the aspirational market. This is the market that our kids need to be looking to. Not the athletes, not the entertainers. This is a more scalable model. And we need to make sure that we're actually creating a higher aspirational market, that we have senior level management in companies, businesses that are growing to scale. How do you see it as the mayor of the city? How do you use your bully pulpit to make sure you drive a climate of diversity and inclusion, and also within your administration, making sure that we actually have opportunities as well?
Great question. So, let's start with the most obvious thing that.
That's we don't mind. Start with Jim.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Following orders. For 23, I'm on the board of Independence Blue Cross, and for 23 years I've sat on the minority contracting and hiring committee. And Blue Cross is a perfect example of a company that gets it. And they get it because they understand that doing the right thing is also the good business thing to do. And the more folks that we get involved in the contracting with that company, the more the wealth is spread, the more subscribers they have, the more people have health care, they get it, they understand it. And I've worked in that committee for 23 years, and I understand the processes to bring to the mayor's office to deal with it. As I said earlier, having a RISE program that sends a person to the Lincoln Financial Field to clean up after an Eagles game is not exactly economic development. But having the opportunities to have minority firms truly participate in the progress of the city is extremely important. I'm committed to doing that. I voted on every single bill that Wilson Good, co-sponsored some bills, Marion Tasco and Wilson have done this kind of public benefits thing when it comes to our contracts. And we follow that, and we care about it, and we talk about it all the time at council when I was serving there. And I do want to follow through with that and commit that that's going to be the kind of economic development I consider important. Business strips in our communities are extremely important. I mean, East Passyunk Avenue in South Philadelphia has taken off crazy. There's no reason why Germantown and Shelton shouldn't be look the same way. And we can do that. So I'm committing to you to pay attention to that and make sure that this administration not only looks like the city, racially and diversity, that we allow people and firms to participate and partake in the propriety, in the wealth of the city as we go forward. I can only prove it to you when I do it and get there and come back here 4 years from now, and either you'll throw me out the door or you'll be happy I'm here. So we'll see how it goes.
I would suggest you don't have to wait for me. Stadiums were built in Philadelphia, and they were built by trade unions in Philadelphia, which historically were segregating that process. They came to Harrisburg, they asked us to build those stadiums, and I said no. I was heading the Philadelphia delegation at the time, and I asked them, what do we get in return? My friend Ryan Morrison over here to the right, and he was a member of the laborers community. Then Sam State Sr. approached me about Tony, we allow us to go forward. I said, I'm allowed to go forward if we can guarantee a greater percentage of people of color are part of that process. The word is leverage, and we have a lot of it. We don't use much of it. So as a result of that, we created DAP, Diversity Apprenticeship Program, which required those contractors, which historically had not hired people of color, to hire them, and they did. And then those stadiums were built with a historic number of people of color, contractors, as well as people who work for those contractors in extraordinary ways. I've done it. But most importantly, the government is one conversation. The private sector is where it is. And we have to accept this basic fact. Understand that tonight somebody's going to take me and take my fellow friend over here. I want people to understand publicly where I stand. This issue requires us to go to the private sector and explain to them you're depressing your economy because you're not diversifying your economy. You're not employing enough people of color, therefore you're not getting any money back. So morally, that's one thing, but economically, it's stupid what they're doing. And so the reality is the mayor has a responsibility to go to all those companies that run around here, those law firms, IBC, all the other ones that run around who have, frankly, a certain percentage, and change that. I heard the word minority sort of crossing my back when I hear it in these rooms in Philadelphia. People of color are the majority in this city. And in America, the way it works, you feed that economy because we're a part of it. And therefore, there's something inappropriate when you go to a company like Comcast and you have a few executives, not more executives. And we can go through the list. These are nice people, but they are missing the boat in terms of our economy. So the mayor certainly can do all the things governmentally that one can do. But most importantly, he has to engage the private sector with leverage. If you want to do business with us, then you have to send lawyers in that look like us. Not all like us, but some of us. And by the way, black women, how about hiring some of those, not just as secretaries, but as people who direct budgets and control hiring.